values, faith, service. They still exist here. Bill Martinez, live.
Hey, that's our commitment to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Bill Martinez here, 28 minutes before the top of the hour. Well, President Trump's revised travel ban, this according to Fox News, was put on hold Wednesday by a federal judge in Hawaii just hours before it was set to take effect after hearing arguments that the executive order discriminates on the basis of nationality. Of course, Trump addressed this during a rally in Nashville, Tennessee yesterday. He says, we're going to win. We're going to keep our citizens safe. The danger is clear. Law is clear. The need for my executive order is clear. The ruling by U.S. District Court Judge Derek Watson prevents the executive order from going into effect, at least for now. Hawaii had requested a temporary restraining order. And here to talk more about it is Raheel Raza. Raheel is the president of the Council for Muslims Facing Tomorrow, author of the book Their Jihad, Not My Jihad, award-winning journalist, public speaker, activist for human rights, featured in the award-winning documentary Honor Diaries. She's a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for service to Canada. She finds herself as being the bridge between East and West, and she has bridged that gap so that we can have a conversation and be able to sit down and reason together about these issues. And what I appreciate about Raheel, in the interest of our First Amendment right, and the reason it's so important, is that if we're going to really understand one another and solve problems, then we need to be able to have a reasonable and frank conversation about these bothersome issues. Raheel Raza, again, I thank you for coming on Bill Martinez Live. How are you?
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, your read on this as the one that has found yourself in being the bridge, as you say, between East and West. What is it that this judge in Hawaii and is missing, and maybe some rather outspoken people here in the United States that somehow we're not understanding the president's job one, which is protecting its citizens? What is it that we're misunderstanding here?
There is such a knee-jerk reaction and so much hysteria around the anti-Trump movement that we have lost the ability to have a reasoned and civilized conversation. I'm an advisor with the Clarion Project, and their tagline is challenging extremism, promoting dialogue and human rights. And that second part, the promoting dialogue part, is something that is missing because everybody has such strong opinions. The way I look at it, that this executive order is not about race, nationality, or religion. It is about securing the borders of the United States. And as a democratically elected president of the United States, President Trump has every right to implement policies that are for the long-term safety and security of his country, of his citizens, which, by the way, include Muslim Americans as well. What people tend to forget, that in this global jihadist insurgency, which does exist, Muslims have also been targets of the extremists. So when President Trump talks about protecting his borders, he is talking about protecting all citizens of every caste, creed, color. And he doesn't bring up the race card as much as everyone else does. And I find that frustrating. However, having said this, I also look upon the United States as a thriving democracy in which there is debate and dissent. I think the debate is less, the dissent is more in this particular case.
Yes.
And President Trump is being held up to a double standard because there are many countries in the world where the leaders of those countries make a decision to ban certain people from coming in. So why is he being held up to a double standard?
Well, as you said earlier, I mean, this is the thing that is rather an expository experience, is when you see the people, like he said, they hate him. They hate the Republican Party and that which they stand for. There is that kind of hate sentiment, sadly, that has been running, kind of amok in this country. It's not been held into check, and our political debates have been mean-spirited. It's no longer about, hey, what is the solution? let's just say that, I don't respect you and I don't like you. And so, I mean, it is so anti-American and anti the United States of America, that is misserving we the people. But, sometimes, Raheel, we have to experience, drowning. I mean, we just have to experience the bad side of it enough to where, you go, okay, how's that working for you? How's that been working for you for the last 10 years? We just keep getting worse and worse, to where we're going to be so bifurcated and divided, that, we're going to be irrelevant,
Well, that is exactly what I'm saying is that, if people would get over their personal angst and look at this in the larger interest of the country in which they live, in which they, have a sense of loyalty. I call it tough love, because change is always hard to accept. But then if you go back in time, since 1965, the United States had an open door policy, and this was done so they could welcome people running away from the communist regimes. And during that time, many people all over the world made use of this open door policy, and thousands of people came from all over the world, including Muslim majority societies, and have settled in Canada, in America as good American citizens, and, they are thriving there. But now that policy is going to change, and there's hostility and resistance towards it, but it's directed personally towards a single person. A single man does not make all the decisions and bring about changes. Obviously, these are thought out decisions. There is administration. There are national security advisors. There are people who have been looking at the issue of terrorism, which, by the way, is a product of radicalization. And for the last 8 years under the Obama administration, President Obama could not even articulate the word radical Islamist ideology. And so, leave alone do anything about it.
Right.
So the extremists felt confident. They strengthened their resolve about their war against the West. And this is not just my words. This is what the radicals have said, the jihadists have said, that they hate the West. They hate the values of the West, and they are at war with the West.
Exactly.
So if a leader of a country says, I'm going to do something about this, then we should take a breath, step back, and say this is in the larger interest of the country. This is beyond partisan politics. It doesn't matter how you vote. You should be interested in the future safety of your country and the future of your children and grandchildren.
Exactly. Well, faced with all these issues, it would seem reasonable to call time out on it, and say, let's make sure that we have a handle on this situation. To me, that's very reasonable. And
it's
the
a very
reaction.
Practical step. Yes, it is a very practical step. And people blow things out of proportion. It's not a ban. It's a temporary moratorium. It's a temporary stoppage until things can be sorted out. I always give the analogy that if I invite guests into my house, I want to look after them. I have an open door policy. I want to take care of them. But if they come and trash my furniture, I would want to close my doors and rethink my invitation and clean up the mess before I open my doors again. Exactly. And this is exactly what he has suggested, a temporary stoppage, so that, things can be sorted out. Now let's look at the 6 countries that are on this ban. Iran, of course, has been at a perpetual war against the United States. The other 5 countries are failed states. They have a lot of internal issues. There's a lot of problems internally, and they're unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And this sends a very strong message to other countries that promote and fund terrorism that this particular leader of the United States is going to be fighting radicalization. He is not going to just sit back and look the other way. So it's probably very different. It's unusual. It's, as I said, tough love. It's hard for people to stomach, but the anti-Trump movement is so well funded, so well orchestrated, and so, so hysterical that everything gets, fuzzied in this context.
Yeah, it is extreme. There's no question about it. And maybe that's why we have an extreme president to a degree, because some say between the tweets and other things that he deals in too much hyperbole. But sometimes you need that. You bully a bully, and you've got to fight it in kind. But meanwhile, those of us with reason have to continue to keep the conversation open. Raheel Raza on Bill Martinez. Raheel, thank you so much for being with us.